Money Show.
Personal Finance with Warren Ingram.
22 minutes now to 8 the time, and Warren Ingram, of course, certified financial planner, of course, the co-founder of Galileo Capital, joins us now. Tonight, the subject is a financial freedom number. Warren, good evening. You're going to have to stop me at the beginning here. What is a financial freedom number?
You know, Stephen, when people kind of say to me, you know, how much do I need to be able to stop working? You know, I hate my job or whatever the deal is. You know, so it's either your financial freedom number or your lotto number. So how much do you have to have invested so that you can sit back and live off the money that you've got and the income that generates? So it's the goal, I guess, we're all working towards. It's not that we all hate our jobs or that we all want to stop working, but it's the number we need to know so that the day after we've achieved that number, we're working because we want to, we're working because it's fun, not because we have to keep building money to work for the man.
All right, so I see what you mean. How do you work it out then? I mean, obviously, everyone is different. Everyone has different expenses. There are also different phases of life. If you have children, your expenses are much higher. If your children are grown, working for themselves, your expenses go down quite dramatically.
Absolutely. And I think it is a tricky number. And always with these kinds of numbers, it's a nice approximation. It can't be your exact number. For that, you'll have to run a very big, very long spreadsheet. But it will be amazing how often this kind of a number will correlate with that very long spreadsheet. So I think if you're a younger person, you know, a lot of the time people in their, you know, early 20s or late 30s will say, I want to be retired by the time I'm 50. I want to hit financial freedom by the time I'm 50, which is a wonderful goal that almost nobody achieves unless you're incredibly lucky. But if that is your goal, then your number, the way to work it out is to take your expenses in a year. So let's just say, you know, for all of your expenses, you're a 25-year-old and you're spending 250,000 Rand a year. And if that's your number, if that's what you spend in a typical year, then take that number and multiply it by 25. So the reason I say 25 is it gives you a lump sum, and if you were to draw from that on an annual basis, it will work out to the point where it adds up to your 250,000 Rand number. So very simply, if you're sitting there and you've got your phone and you say, well, my number is 250,000 a year, that's what I spend, multiply it by 25, and you get to a number of 6.25 million. So that's your lotto number or your financial freedom number. So if you hit that number, you can draw from that on an annual basis enough money to cover your 250,000 a year. And it should be, if you invest that money in a very kind of typical balanced portfolio over time, you should be able to get enough growth that you're beating inflation and still able to draw your 250 that then grows with inflation itself. So that's the starting point. And you're right, Stephen, if you're younger, then 25 times your expenses is your number. If you're older, so let's say you're at the other end of that working spectrum and you're 60 years old and you've got a couple of years to go of work, and hopefully your kids are largely out of your hair and you know they're part of your life but not part of your budget, then you can reduce that to 20 times your annual expenses because you've got much less time to have to fund your expenses. So you're right. It does adjust depending on your age and circumstances. But it also, a lot of the time people will look at this and say, well, you know, I'm sure my expenses will change. It's quite rare that your lifestyle changes dramatically, whether you're 60 or 70. You know, you might spend a little bit differently, but your expenses are going to be largely in line and adjusted for inflation.
I suppose so. And I mean, I suppose the big thing really is as you know, as you point out, it's time and expenses. And if you know what those are, there must be a huge amount of, I mean, if you know your numbers. So, I mean, I think most of us are not expecting, as you say, to retire at 50. For some of us, that's probably, you know, just complete fantasy. But does that still mean there's a benefit of knowing what your financial freedom number actually is? And I suppose one of them is just clarity. I mean, it's always useful to actually know what your target is.
I think that's exactly right. We're kind of, a lot of people are grafting away, working as hard as they can, doing the best they can, but they don't really know that goal. What are they working towards? So just to use that example, let's say you do the exercise this year and your expenses work out, to the point where you multiply it by 25, and just for argument's sake, say your financial freedom number is 10 million rand, but you only have 2 million rand of investments. Now, that's not the idea of your financial freedom number, is not to depress you now because you've got this huge gap. It's to give you a goal to say, well, that's what it is now. And there are a couple of things I can do to close that gap. Number one, can you do something about your expenses? Because if you can reduce your expenses a little bit, that has a 25 times impact on the amount of capital you need. So if you find a way to cut your expenses by 100,000 rand in a year, 100,000 times 25, my maths isn't that good, but I think it's a lot of money. And so by pulling one lever, reducing your expenses if you can, you can get your financial freedom number down. But secondly, it gives you a goal to work towards, to say, well, if it was 10 million this year, next year, let me see if I can take my 2 million rand, let's say move it to 3 million rand. So now the gap is not 8 million, it's 7 million. So year after year after year, if you can get that progress going towards your goal, that's really what you want to know. You're 100% right. Most of us aren't going to stop work at 50 and be able to just sit back. So it's about saying, I know where I'm going and I know that I'm narrowing the gap. And if you keep narrowing the gap year after year, it gives you a nice rate of progress. And very few people have that kind of parity in their minds about where they're going and are they making progress. Equally, if you're not making progress, it's a nice wake-up call to say, no one's telling me what to do. I'm in control. Here's my number. I've calculated it myself. I need to make some hard choices if I do want to stop work younger, or I'm happy to carry on working to 65, or I'm going to have to keep going to 75 because I'm not willing to cut the expenses and I'm not going to save so much over my career.
A lot of this is really, I suppose, about control over your time. I mean, if you have financial freedom and you don't need to work, you can decide what you're going to do. And that is really, I think for most of us, we see that as a massive goal.
Absolutely. And for a lot of us, we would look at our careers and we would say, okay, it's a great dream. I want to hit financial freedom at 50. Once you start doing these calculations and you realize that it's possible, but it means that you're going to have to work incredibly hard, in your normal career, 5 days a week, and then you're going to have to do a side hustle, in the evenings and on the weekends to earn that extra money. If hitting financial freedom at 50 is that important to you, you can spend the time earning the money to get to that goal. Equally, you might say to yourself, well, I kind of like work. I enjoy what I do. I've got no great desire to work, that hard that I'm, burning the candle at both ends just so that I can get to financial freedom at 50. I'm actually very happy to keep going to age 65. And so then, working in a nice sustainable pace, not burning yourself out, saving, enough, but not too much, getting that balance between life while you're working and saving, and not just trying to defer everything to your retirement age. You can start to control how you spend your time generating money, and equally make some informed decisions to say, gee, this is, this work thing is not so bad. It's not kind of as terrible as everyone thought. So I'm going to extend my career rather and enjoy extra holidays, enjoy the time, and make the working life as enjoyable as possible. So I think you can pull different levers around time, than just saving as hard as you can, because that's the only thing you can do. You can control how long you want to work.
I suppose the other thing is that you can also try and turn another interest into work, into a business. And I mean, if you have a financial freedom number, if you know exactly where you are, you can actually start to do all sorts of things that you couldn't do before. And part of that could be starting a new business just because you want to.
It's such a freeing thing. If let's say you hit your financial freedom number at age 55, and let's not choose a career because then we'll upset the people who work in that career. But let's just say you do a job you really don't like, but you've now achieved your number, and you've always wanted to do something else. You wanted to write a book, whatever it is. Achieving financial freedom means that you can either take your foot off the pedal altogether in your current career, the one you really don't like, if it's consuming all of your time, and say, I'm going to take that time and I'm going to dedicate it to doing something I really enjoy, and then see how that unfolds and whether it becomes a new career. And it's amazing how people without financial pressure who find their real passion, how they turn that into a phenomenally financially successful career as well. And so, giving yourself the freedom to get to a point where you're not just working just to make a living and consuming all of your energy to do that often allows people to form a new career. Equally, there are those people that really don't like working because they have to. And it's amazing watching those people, once they achieve their financial freedom number, the next day they still get up, they still go to work, because now they're doing it out of a positive choice. They're actually sitting there saying, you know what, I'm okay going to work. And if my boss really upsets me, I've hit my number, I can tell the boss where to go if they get on my bad side. And that extra bit of confidence often kickstarts the career, and you find those people becoming the boss they wanted to be themselves, and the kind of version of themselves, because they've got that freedom. So I think there is a huge amount to this that we wouldn't necessarily foresee when we just talk about winning your number, getting to your goal.
I mean, I suppose also, it's interesting when you talk about risk tolerance, because one of the reasons that we often don't do things we think need to be done in a place that we work at is because we're too scared. If you've got sort of, there's another phrase, set yourself up for life money, well then it doesn't matter. And that might actually mean you become a very useful employee because you're not scared of saying what you think.
I think it's a extremely powerful point. I've watched people do that in their careers where they were just so timid or so worried, and you don't really make very constructive long-term decisions based on fear. You should step into the right risks because it's the thing you think you should do. And the moment people eliminate fear from their thinking, because they've got, that extra layer of confidence now, they make very constructive choices. Equally, the way they project those choices, the way they communicate those to everyone else changes because they're doing it from a confident place. And when you ask those people, what was the difference? Why are you able to communicate that now? It's the same message. You just said it differently 2 years ago. And it's that element of confidence. So I think you're right, Stephen. It does make a big impact. Equally, once you've achieved your financial freedom number, the next amount of money that you save, you don't need to invest that very conservatively and very cautiously because you've got your banker money, you've got the nest egg money set aside. So that extra bit of money that you now start to save, that could be the money that you take a bit of extra risk where you buy the world index that's far, far removed from whatever it is that you do, or I hope you don't do it, but you take a view on a few tech businesses or whatever the thing is. And that could be the money that really doubles or trebles. And if it goes incredibly well for you, that's amazing. Equally, if it goes to zero, it doesn't affect your financial position because you've already got your nest egg money set aside.
We're talking to Warren Ingram tonight, personal finance, of course, on The Money Show. He's a certified financial planner. We're talking about your financial freedom number. Moses has sent us a question. Warren, here's the question. The new two-pot system is almost here. It starts next week, and there's serious hype on social media. It looks like a lot of people are planning to withdraw from their retirement savings. I'm not sure if I should do it. I'm getting by on my current income, but I have a small emergency fund. My current savings will cover my expenses for 2 months. But the portion that will become available from my pension fund will give me added peace of mind. I want to leave it in my pension fund until I need it. Is this a good way of doing it, or should I withdraw it to add to my savings? We'll hear Warren's answer to your question, Moses, in a moment. 9 minutes now to 8.
The Money Show.
Personal Finance with Warren Ingram.
Warren Ingram, co-founder of Galileo Capital, with us on Personal Finance, of course, tonight. And Warren, you heard Moses's question. Should he withdraw money as part of the two-pot pension system simply to add to his sort of emergency fund, or should he keep it in the big pot? It's quite an interesting question, actually.
I'm busy climbing onto my soapbox, Stephen. I can't say this more emphatically without using rude language. Please do not draw money from your retirement funds for almost any reason. If the loan shark is outside your front door with a cricket bat and about to break your knees, maybe that's a good reason to draw money from your retirement funds. But other than that, please leave every cent you possibly can in your retirement funds until you retire and you need the money. I think that this two-part system is incredible. I'm thrilled that it's arrived, and I feel it's probably a decade or two late. But that, having said that, it's here, and it is the right structure for our country. It's the right structure for all of our workers. But we need to understand that portion, that one portion which they're going to call the savings pot, it's not really there for your holiday fund or your extra fancy outfit fund. It's there because COVID happens and you've lost your job and you need some money somewhere. That's a good reason to access your savings pot. But if you want to have a bit of extra money in your emergency fund, then in a way you could view that savings pot as money already in a emergency fund. So please don't draw it out. I think just to understand, the tax consequences are hectic. You take that money out of your savings pot, it gets added to your taxable income for the year. So if you're paying tax at a rate of 30%, you're just giving SARS 30% of that savings pot. It disappears, you don't get it back, and then you get the balance. And if you had left it in your retirement fund, it would have been growing without paying any tax, and would have set you up for a good retirement later in life. So I think, understanding this two-part, I know there's an incredible amount of noise around this everywhere, and lots of people saying that they're going to draw in their money. And I think people are saying there's going to be a huge amount of money added to the fiscus and, through extra tax. I hope we see no withdrawals, because that tells me that people are taking their retirement savings seriously. But if they are, please just do it for real emergencies, not for a potential emergency into the future. That's what it's there for. You will be able to access it if there is a real emergency. Don't do it in advance. It's just the worst idea possible, Moses.
I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I have a horrible feeling that most people are going to take out as much money as they can, partly because there's so many demands on it, and they may not be spending it on themselves. They'll be spending it on other members of their family, Warren. And are we going to find, and as far as I know, this hasn't been done in a comparable way in a comparable country, are we about to jump into the unexplored here?
I'm also not sure if they've done a conversion like this elsewhere in the world, but let's turn it on its head. Why is this such a good thing? It's because at the moment, we're in a situation where a lot of people work for a company that, offers them a provident fund. And they're looking at their provident fund statement every year and they're saying, oh, I've got 100,000 or 200,000 in there. And I've got demands on my money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quit my job. And that's what a lot of people are doing. They decide to quit their job so that they can get that retirement fund money. They then pay a big tax on it. And then they use the money to settle the debts or help somebody. What's so catastrophic about that is, number one, they've cashed in their retirement fund savings, and people do this time and time again. They keep changing jobs and then losing out on their retirement savings. But secondly, they keep changing jobs. And in a country like ours, where a job is an incredibly rare thing to get nowadays, just quitting your job doesn't guarantee that you'll get another job. So then you could end up in a situation where you've cashed in your retirement money and you're unemployed. So why I like the two-part system is the one portion, the bigger portion, you will not be able to touch until you are retired, until at least your age 55. So I think that's the good part about this, Stephen, that makes me happy, because it's forcing people to leave the money behind and then giving them a little bit of money in emergencies, which is the kind of best compromise I think everybody could think of.
It's interesting. I wonder if everyone else is going to see it like that. Warren Ingram, thank you so much. Nice to talk to you tonight. And of course, the magic, I suppose, of the financial freedom number. Warren is a certified financial planner and co-founder of Galileo Capital.